Hey guys, tonight we're stepping aboard a creaky old sloop cutting across the choppy waters of the Caribbean, sails flapping like lazy fans in the thick salt air, and the scent of tar, sweat, and gunpowder drifting on the breeze. Below deck, it's cramped and smoky. Hammocks sway, rats scurry, and somewhere in the corner, a grizzled pirate is moaning, clutching the side of his face like it's about to fall off. That, dear listener, is the sound of a pirate toothache. Now, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your country and local time. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're aboard a pirate vessel in the mid-1700s, maybe English, maybe French, maybe just a ragtag group of sailors who've decided the rules of polite society don't apply once you're 3 days out from port. You've got salt in your beard, calluses on your hands, and an unmistakable throbbing sensation in your jaw. You try to ignore it at first. Pirates aren't exactly known for whining, after all, but it's there, dull at first, then sharp, persistent. Maybe something lodged in the gum? Maybe one of your molars cracked during last night's celebratory gnaw on rock-hard hardtack. Toothaches were a common curse on pirate ships, not because they had piles of candy aboard, but because of how little they could do to prevent or treat dental decay. See, refined sugar wasn't a daily indulgence at sea, but pirates did often seize cargo that included sweet treats or dried fruits soaked in syrup. They also drank a lot, and rum is terrible for teeth, especially when it replaces clean water for days on end. Combine that with poor nutrition, scurvy, and a complete lack of floss, and you've got a recipe for rot. Your gums swell. Your breath starts to go a little foul. Not that anyone notices, everyone smells bad. But the ache? That's personal. That's yours. And unlike scurvy or smallpox, there's no glory in tooth pain. It's just annoying, constant, distracting. The kind of thing that makes even a hardened pirate consider jumping overboard just to make it stop. You shift on the damp wooden floor, running your tongue along the tooth in question. Feels loose. That can't be good. Now, here's the thing. The average pirate didn't have a toothbrush. Toothbrushes existed, sort of. In China, bristle brushes had been used for centuries. In Europe, some wealthier folks had personal ivory brushes by the 1700s. But on a pirate ship, you were lucky if you rinsed with rum and spat overboard. Some pirates chewed on sticks, soft-ended twigs known as chew sticks, rubbed on the gums to scrape off grime. Others might have swished seawater or vinegar if they were particularly desperate. But there was no morning routine, no mouthwash, just the occasional, ow, when you bit into something unfortunate. Historians still argue whether pirates as a group had worse dental health than merchant sailors. Some claim the pirates, having more varied and looted diets, might have had slightly better nutrition. Others say the endless drinking, fighting, and disregard for hygiene tipped the scale the other way. It's hard to say for sure. Dental records aren't exactly a priority in the annals of piracy. But what is certain is that the pain was real, and pirates dealt with it in ways both inventive and, well, horrifying. As your jaw continues to throb, you consider your options. There's no doctor aboard. There's the barber surgeon, of course, but he's also the one who stitched up Black Tom's leg last week, while singing sea shanties and sipping from a flask. Trustworthy? Debatable. Someone nearby suggests biting down on a bullet, literally. Another pirate offers a swig of grog and a fishbone to pick at the sore spot. Someone else recommends you pray to Saint Apollonia, patron saint of dental sufferers. You're not particularly religious, but hey, at this point, why not? Meanwhile, you lie back, close your eyes, and try not to think about it. The sway of the ship lulls you just a little. You focus on the creak of ropes above, the rhythmic crash of waves below. It's oddly soothing, if you ignore the nerve pain radiating through your skull. Suddenly, you remember a story you once heard from an old salt in Nassau. Something about pirates rubbing gunpowder into an infected tooth to burn out the devil. You're not sure if that's a treatment or just a punishment. You shift again. Your hammock sways gently, and for now, the pain is manageable. Maybe it'll go away on its own. Maybe not. But one thing's certain. In this floating, stinking, chaotic microcosm of life, there are no clean white dental chairs. No x-rays. Just a lot of grit, bad breath, and the ever-present danger of biting down the wrong way. Still, you smile to yourself. Well, half a smile. The other half hurts. But you're a pirate, after all. A toothache is just another storm to ride out. The next morning, or at least what passes for morning in the hazy, timeless blur of ship life, you wake to a pulsing, swollen jaw. The ship rocks gently, but your head feels like it's full of lead. You spit over the side, bloody saliva. Definitely not a good sign. Breakfast is dried peas and biscuits so hard you could patch a hole with them. You manage a few bites using the opposite side of your mouth, but every chew sends a tiny bolt of pain through your temple. You're not alone. Toothaches were common enough among pirates that even the most hardened among them would grimace now and then. But unlike, say, scurvy, whose bleeding gums and loose teeth were a dead giveaway, your pain is invisible to others unless you start whining. And nobody likes a whining pirate. So what did they actually do about it? Enter the barber surgeon, the closest thing to a dentist you're going to find at sea. His tools? Bone saw, needle, forceps, and a rusty hook he swears by. His qualifications? Let's just say he once removed a musket ball from someone's rear and lived to tell about it. You find him crouched near the stern, sewing a patch onto a boot with bloodied fingers. He grunts when you tell him about the pain, then motions for you to sit. Let's be clear, this is not going to be gentle. The ship's barber surgeon was a catch-all fixer, bloodletter, bone setter, leech applier, and sometimes, if the need arose, a tooth yanker. With no anesthesia and questionable sanitation, the procedure was equal parts skill and brutality. He examines your mouth by jabbing a finger in, no gloves, and wiggling the offending tooth. She's loose, he mutters. Then he reaches into a cloth bundle and pulls out what looks like a bent spoon welded to a wrench, the tooth key. The dental key was a cruel, twisted device. Inserted into the mouth, it hooked around the tooth and twisted it out, ideally. In practice, it often broke the tooth, the jaw, or both. But when pain was unbearable, it was either that or let the infection spread. Historians still argue whether tooth extraction was more a matter of desperation than treatment aboard ships. Some records suggest pirates were quicker to pull a tooth than other sailors, perhaps because they had less fear of disfigurement or more tolerance for agony. You sit back. The surgeon wipes the key on a rag that might once have been clean. He offers you a swig of strong rum, not for sterilization, for courage. The procedure, if you can call it that, is over in seconds, but it feels like an eternity. The key twists. You grunt. Something cracks. Pain flashes white behind your eyes. And then, relief. Sort of. There's blood. A lot of it. The hole where your molar was is now a throbbing crater. But the pressure is gone. You breathe out. Maybe even smile. Tooth's gone. You survived. He drops the tooth into a little tin. Souvenir, he says with a crooked grin. Some pirates really did keep pulled teeth as grim trophies, strung on necklaces, used as dice, or traded like morbid currency. Others believe they brought luck. You're not so sure. You head back to your hammock, a little dizzy, your tongue probing the new emptiness in your mouth. There's no ice to numb the swelling, no gauze to pack the wound. Just rum, spit, and time. Nearby, one of the younger deckhands watches you with wide eyes. He's maybe 15, barely old enough to grow whiskers. He asks what it felt like. You shrug, like getting punched in the face by God. He nods solemnly, as if you've just passed on sacred pirate wisdom. As the day drifts on, you drift with it, half asleep, half awake, the pain now dull instead of sharp. You dream of soft food, of warm baths, of gentle hands and mini mouthwash. But dreams are for land. Out here, on the endless blue, practicality reigns. Tooth pain? Yank it. Bleeding? Cauterize it. Sad? Drink more rum. Still, you marvel at the fact that even in this world of cannonballs and cutlasses, something as small as a tooth can bring you to your knees. No wonder sailors feared it. No wonder even hardened captains went pale when their molars began to ache. And the infection? That's the real threat. If the root festers, if the swelling spreads, it could mean fever, abscess, death, all from a simple cavity. Back then, there was little understanding of bacteria, but pirates knew one thing. rot spreads. And they feared the creeping sicknesses that started with pain in the face and ended in shivering, delusional death. So you're lucky. The tooth is gone. You're still breathing. And you've got one less thing to worry about until the next one starts to ache. Because, oh yes, there will be a next one. By the next day, your jaw is swollen like you've been in a tavern brawl, but the worst of the pain has dulled. You're slurping a thin fish stew, trying not to let the salty broth sting the fresh wound, when an older crewmate plops down beside you. His name's Thorn. No one knows if that's his real name, but it fits, sharp, dry, and liable to stick around longer than you'd like. Thorn flashes a grin full of gaps and gold. "Lost one, did ye?" he asks, poking at your cheek. "A righto passage, that. You're a proper sailor now." You raise an eyebrow. "You mean pulling teeth makes me official?" He chuckles. "Better than being dumped overboard with jaw rot. Back in my day, they'd pack the hole with tobacco. Said it kept the devil out." You're not sure if he means infection or actual devils, but you nod like it makes sense. Thorn's the kind of pirate who's either completely mad or strangely wise, sometimes both. The crew's full of home remedies, and you start to learn them, bit by bit. Some rub salt into the gums to numb the ache. Others chew cloves, or even bits of cloth soaked in vinegar. One man insists the only cure is a pinch of gunpowder under the tongue. Burns the rot out, he swears. Historians still argue whether pirates had consistent dental practices, or if each ship developed its own traditions. What's certain is that most crews were a patchwork of cultures: escaped slaves, deserters, indentured servants, freed Africans, and former merchants. With them came a melting pot of folk medicine, including Old West African tooth rituals, Irish whiskey compresses, and even indigenous American herbal poultices. You hear tales. A cook from Barbados claims his grandmother swore by onion skins boiled in seawater. The ship's quartermaster once tried leeches on his gums. That didn't go well. He's missing more than teeth now. There's a kind of camaraderie in the suffering. Everyone on board knows what it's like to ache and have no choice but to keep working. No sick days at sea. No excuses. If your hands can still grip rope or blade, you're expected to pull your weight, even if your face is puffed like a cannonball. And speaking of weight, let's talk about diet. You quickly discover that your mouth isn't the only thing under siege. Pirate rations are notoriously brutal on the teeth. Ship's biscuit, hardtack, is the main culprit. It's like eating concrete laced with gravel. If the biscuits don't break your teeth, the weevils inside them might make you wish they had. Meat? Rare. Usually salted beyond recognition and tougher than boot leather. Dried beans and peas. Better, but not by much. Sugar, surprisingly, is common when they can get it, stolen from merchant ships or hoarded from port trades. It sweetens your grog but rots your molars. You start noticing who has teeth and who doesn't. The younger ones, mostly. The older crew often sport permanent scowls, sunken cheeks, or make use of wooden teeth, carved to fill the gaps. One guy's carved himself an entire lower jaw out of bone. More art than function. You overhear a conversation one evening. Two deckhands betting on who'll lose their next tooth first. They laugh, mouths like jack-o'-lanterns, as one swears he's going to carve a gold replacement next time, just for show. In port cities, some pirates do get fancy dental work. If you've got coin and you're lucky, a barber surgeon might fit you with ivory caps or even import Dutch porcelain teeth. But those luxuries are for captains and quartermasters. The average swabby? He learns to gum his bread, and thank Neptune he's still got lips. Even pirate codes mention health in their own way. One famous code allowed injured pirates to collect a share even if they couldn't fight. Missing limbs, eyes, or yes, teeth were considered battle scars, honor marks. But if your mouth went septic and your jawbone blackened, that was a death sentence. One night, Thorn shows you something. In the flickering lantern light, he pulls out a bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside, teeth. Dozens of them. Human mostly. He grins. "I keep 'em. Trophies. Stories, every one." He points at a yellowed molar. "That one. Took it out with a dagger. Bit clean through the blade." You're not sure if he's joking. People collect strange things at sea. Teeth. Bones. Locks of hair. It's part ritual, part boredom. But mostly, it's about control, holding on to some part of a world that constantly tries to take pieces from you. The next morning, you try to smile at your reflection in the barrel's water. It's different. One less tooth. One more story. You're starting to feel like a pirate after all. And you wonder, what happens when the next tooth goes bad? Will you yank it too? Or will you try Thorn's clove tobacco cure? Maybe you'll invent your own method. A bit of sea salt tea and a steady prayer to whichever sea god isn't laughing at you right now. You don't know. But for now, you've survived. And in pirate life, that's the best kind of progress. A week drifts by. The pain has ebbed to a dull memory, just enough to remind you how fragile your teeth and your luck really are. But today, something new is going around the ship. A quiet hum, a sort of superstition, passed from pirate to pirate like an extra ration of rum. It's about sea curses and aching jaws. You're fixing rigging near the mainsail when a skinny lad named Pip leans over and whispers, "You ever heard of the Tooth Devil?" You blink. What? He nods solemnly, like he's just asked if you believe in gravity. He's real. Comes for sailors who spit in the ocean after pulling a tooth. Makes your tongue swell, turns your teeth green, then rips the rest out in your sleep. You laugh until you realize Pip isn't joking. Neither is the tattooed brute next to him, who nods slowly and mutters, "Seen it happen." Or something like it. Fella named Briggs. Mouth went black overnight. Historians still argue whether these myths were just sailor tales or actual coping tools. Maybe both. At sea, folklore becomes medicine and ritual becomes therapy. You start noticing the little things. How some pirates wrap lost teeth in cloth and toss them to the sea with a whispered word. Others scratch tiny marks on the mast, like counting tooth sacrifices to Poseidon. You didn't perform a ritual when yours came out. Oh, later that evening, you ask Thorn, "Tooth Devil, real thing?" He snorts. About as real as the sea cow that grants wishes. But best not to take chances. So you make one up. You stand by the edge of the ship, hold a pinch of crushed clove, and toss it into the wind. "Thanks for not killing me," you mumble. Thorn watches, smirking. "You're learning," he says. The crew's oral health, if you can call it that, functions on routines as strange as any church liturgy. Every morning, a handful of men scrape their teeth with rough cloths. One uses a carved stick, pointed at one end and frayed at the other. A miswak, passed down from his grandfather in North Africa. He dips it in rum first. Kills the rot, he claims. You're not sure if he means the rot in the gums or the soul. Toothpicks made of bone or splinters from old barrels circulate hand to hand. Some pirates tie tiny pouches around their necks filled with crushed mint or herbs, both for the smell and the hope it might ward off rot. The ship's cook swears chewing on licorice root helps with plaque. You try it. It tastes like the underside of a boot, but your breath improves. Slightly. There's an odd little moment every time the ship reaches port. A few men disappear for a day or two and come back smelling of wine, fish, and cloves. Turns out, in many port cities, from Port Royal to Cartagena, you can find tooth ladies. Not actual dentists, but women who brew herbal rinses, press numbing pastes into aching gums, or even extract teeth for a silver coin and a prayer. These women are often a mix of midwives, herbalists, and folk healers, trusted more than the bloody-handed barber surgeons. Some pirates swear by them. Others prefer to wait for a moonless night and a sharp blade. One crewmate, a Portuguese fellow named Mateo, shows you his method one evening. He takes a mouthful of salt water, swishes it, then gently presses a glowing coal, yes, a coal, near his aching gum. Draws the demon out, he explains with a wince. Or at least scares it. It's not entirely nonsense. Heat does reduce inflammation, but it also burns. Mateo spends the next week slurping soup. The ship's logbook has curious entries, too. Scratched notes beside crew member names, like tooth drawn, port side, rum after. Sometimes you see symbols you can't decipher. Tiny fish, half moons, one that looks like a jawbone. Could it be the quartermaster keeping dental records? Some kind of pirate ledger of mouths? Probably not, but the idea sticks with you. One afternoon, while patching sails, a strong wind kicks up and you catch a peculiar scent, sweet, herbal, slightly smoky. You follow it to the captain's quarters. There, seated at a low table, is the captain himself, chewing on something between sips of tea. He sees you and gestures you in. "Licorice and myrrh," he says, pointing at the little bundle in his hand. "Good for the breath. Good for the rot." You nod, surprised. He's the last man you'd expect to care about dental hygiene. But then he leans back and adds, "Also, keeps the crew from mutiny." Hard to rebel when you can't speak for the pain. A joke? Or is it? It's in that moment you realize a pirate captain doesn't just manage gold and cannonballs. He manages teeth, morale, misery, and if a little licorice root stops a brawl in the night, it's worth its weight in silver. Later, you think back to your own mouth. It's healing, mostly. You run your tongue along the gum. Smooth, a little sore, but no pus. That's a win. But something about all of this sticks in your mind. The rituals, the remedies, the wild stories. Pirates didn't just survive. They adapted. They built a floating culture where pain became story, rot became ritual, and even a pulled tooth earned you respect. And if that isn't weirdly beautiful, well, maybe you've been at sea too long. By now, your sea legs are solid, your muscles stronger, and your understanding of pirate dental care far more colorful than you ever imagined. You're part of the crew in more ways than one. You've pulled your weight, bled a little, and shared stories under starlight. But today, a new challenge shows its yellowing teeth, literally. Meet Big Horace. Horace is the ship's strongest man and, arguably, its loudest. He laughs like a cannon going off and eats like a shark on payday. Unfortunately, he's also been complaining about a back molar for 2 weeks straight. It's now visibly infected. His jaw looks swollen on one side, like he's holding a musket ball in his cheek. This evening, a crowd forms on deck. It's time. Horace has asked Thorn to yank the beast out, and everyone wants to watch. No pressure, right? The makeshift dental scene is as grimy as it is theatrical. Thorn brings out the extraction kit, which consists of a pair of pliers, a curved knife, a scrap of clean linen, and a flask of rum. A barrel is rolled over for Horace to sit on. He drinks deeply. Someone starts humming a sea shanty under their breath. Morbid, cheerful. Historians still argue whether most extractions at sea were performed by trained barber surgeons or just the steadiest-handed brute aboard. On pirate ships, odds are it was the latter. "All right, open wide," Thorn says, already sweating a bit. Horace grimaces, mouth agape. The tooth is black, a sad little monument to everything wrong with a pirate's diet. Thorn grips it with the pliers, twisting slowly. You hear it before you see it, the awful, wet snap. Horace's body jerks. A sailor faints. The tooth comes free like a pearl from an oyster, only much more disgusting. Blood flows, but not dangerously. The linen is applied, and rum is poured generously. Horace, true to form, raises the bloodied tooth to the sky and roars, "Still prettier than my ex-wife." The crowd cheers. You clap, though your stomach isn't thrilled about it. Later that night, the tooth gets nailed to the mast, a strange tradition, apparently meant to ward off scurvy. No one knows where it started. One guy insists it's a French thing. Another swears it began with Caribbean smugglers. Whatever its origin, the tooth on the mast now joins other grim tokens: a cracked compass, a charred musket stock, a pouch of dried rat tails. You start seeing the ship as a floating museum of suffering and ingenuity. And you start thinking again about your own missing tooth. You never saw it after Thorn pulled it. Where did it go? The next morning, you ask. He points to the galley with a smirk. Cook wanted it. Said he's making a necklace. You stare at him. He's joking, Thorn adds. Probably. There's a strange camaraderie that grows around these dental dramas. Everyone has a story. The Scottish helmsman tells you about a time his cousin tried to smoke the pain away with an actual pipe of burning chili powder. Didn't work, but his mouth was so numb he forgot about the toothache for days. The cook swears by onion poultices. The cabin boy? He once tried meditating it away, staring at the horizon until the pain dissolved, or so he says. You try not to laugh. One crewmate even believes in moon cures. He waits until the moon is exactly half full and then drinks a tea made of star anise and sea salt. The balance helps, he explains, utterly serious. You can't help but wonder, were pirates actually superstitious? Or just resourceful? Maybe both. You realize that, for all their violence and chaos, These men live by systems. Not legal codes, maybe, but rules nonetheless. Tooth pain? There's a plan for that. Rotten gums? A system. Fear of infection? Pray to the mast, chew mint, and don't ask too many questions. By the week's end, Horace is back to normal, mostly. His cheek has returned to its usual size, though he now spits with extra flair, just to make the point. He approaches you one afternoon and holds out something wrapped in cloth. You open it. It's your own tooth, polished, tied on a thin strip of leather. For luck, he says. Hang it in your hammock. Keep the rest in. You don't know whether to laugh or cry, but you take it. A weird, slightly gross gift, but a gift all the same. The sea changes people. Or maybe it reveals what's already there. You're starting to see it in yourself, the rough pragmatism, the tolerance for weirdness, the low-key obsession with your gums. That night, the ship creaks and rocks gently. You lie in your hammock, the wind humming through the sails, the tooth charm swinging softly above your face like some grotesque wind chime. You're still not sure if pirates feared the tooth devil, but you know they respected pain. They had to. Pain was inevitable, but suffering? That could be negotiated, bartered, laughed at, and sometimes even pulled out by the roots. You wake early to the slap of waves and distant curses. It's repair day, the ship's foremast needs reinforcing, and everyone's pitching in, even you. You might not be driving nails or hoisting planks, but there's always something to carry, fetch, or hold steady. And besides, Thorn wants you nearby. He's got another patient. This one's different. A man named Ezra. Quiet, wiry, always scribbling in a notebook. Rumor says he once studied in Lisbon, or maybe Morocco. No one's sure. What is clear is that Ezra is suffering. He doesn't complain, not like Horace. But his gums are swollen, his breath sour, and he winces when he eats. Thorn suspects it's scurvy. You've heard the word tossed around, a kind of sailor's curse, like ghosts or bad rum. But it's real, and it starts in the mouth. Historians still argue whether pirates understood the full causes of scurvy. Citrus was a known remedy by the 18th century, at least among some navies. But merchant ships and outlaw crews often lacked consistent access to lemons or limes. Pirates? They had to improvise. Today, you and Ezra go hunting. Not treasure, but teeth food. Thorn sends you below deck, into the hold, with instructions. Look for anything remotely acidic, anything green, anything fermented. You find a crate of pickled onions, half leaking. A barrel of sauerkraut. Don't ask where it came from. 2 suspicious lemons, more blue than yellow. And, miraculously, a bundle of dried seaweed wrapped in waxed cloth. Ezra eyes the seaweed like it's gold. I've read about this, he says, voice hoarse. The Japanese use it. You blink. The who? He just smiles and starts chewing. There's something deeply human about this scene. 2 men in the bowels of a pirate ship, chewing seaweed to keep their teeth in their heads. You wonder how many silent cures like this existed, passed from traveler to traveler, scrawled in diaries, whispered across decks. Above deck, you help Ezra start a weird little garden, just a row of damp cloths where he sprinkles sprouted lentils and beans. Greens, he says. Microgreens, technically. You're not sure what that means, but within days, tiny shoots emerge, and the crew starts calling it the medicine moss. Funny how fast pirates adapt. One sailor steals a sprout to rub on his gums. Another offers rum in exchange for a handful. Ezra becomes a kind of green-thumb dentist. His gums improve slightly. Not dramatically, but enough. One night, he tells you about medieval sailors who thought scurvy was a form of internal rot caused by evil winds. Others thought it was punishment for bad behavior or unclean spirits in the water barrel. There's no evil wind, he says, spitting a sprout over the rail. Just vitamin C. You're not sure what a vitamin is, but you believe him. It's not all sprouts and folklore. Ezra also mixes a dental powder, charcoal, dried mint, crushed seashell, and something he won't name. Mystery ingredient, he says. It smells terrible but feels surprisingly good on your tongue. Thorn starts using it too. Soon, every hammock has a pouch of Ezra's black grit tucked beside it. The ship smells minier, but not everything works. One day, someone tries to boil a concoction of tobacco, salt, and cod liver oil. For rinsing, he says. It clears your sinuses and nearly burns a hole in the deck. Another sailor swears by biting down on cloves, but chews too hard and cracks a molar. Even Thorn miscalculates. He tries cauterizing a gum abscess with a hot knife. The patient screams so loud that seabirds take flight. Still, each experiment brings a new story, a new chuckle, or at least a lesson. Pain is the teacher no one wants, but everyone listens to. You begin noticing how much oral health shapes life at sea. Who can eat? Who can shout orders? Who gets quiet when the ache sets in? One old pirate you barely know starts avoiding meals altogether. Thorn finds him chewing on an old bootstrap. Hurts less than hardtack, the man mumbles. So Thorn introduces broth days twice a week, soft food only. You help ladle the stew. It's mostly beans, seawater, and fish bits, but it warms the body and soothes the jaw. Pirates line up like schoolchildren, bowls in hand. Some even smile. The ship becomes oddly domestic. You see men rinsing with salt water after meals. A few try flossing with sail thread. One creates a bizarre wooden brush tipped with pig bristles. Ezra praises the idea, then warns him about splinters. The line between pirate and apothecary starts to blur. You hear arguments about tooth roots, debates over tongue coatings. Someone draws a sketch of a perfect molar on the map table. New treasure, they joke. What strikes you is this: they're not doing it for beauty or vanity. They're doing it because surviving another week matters. Because a toothache at sea can become death by infection. Because laughter fades fast when the pain comes back. And maybe, just maybe, because somewhere deep down, even pirates want a kiss without bleeding. One night, you lean over the rail, chewing your now daily sprig of medicine moss. Ezra joins you. The moon is out. The sails whisper. He says nothing at first, just watches the stars. Then, you know, when this voyage ends. I might write a book. Dental Remedies of the Maritime Rogue. Think it'll sell? You grin. Only if it has pictures. You're woken by a loud, clumsy scuffle near the forward hatch. Not a fight, just someone panicking. You sit up in your hammock and see Thorn, shirt half-buttoned, hurrying toward the noise with his pouch of tools swinging at his side. You follow. It's Horace again. Of course it is. This time, he's bleeding from the gum line. Not a dramatic gush, just a slow, sticky oozing that's been soaking his beard. He's trembling, holding his jaw like he's trying to stop his skull from falling apart. The tooth that Thorn had tried to wiggle loose a few days ago has rebelled. The gums around it are inflamed, the area red and glossy, like wet coral. It looks worse than it sounds, which is saying something, because Horace is moaning like a ghost in a bad play. Thorn gives you a nod. You've seen this set up enough now to know what's needed. You help get Horace onto a barrel. Another pirate, one of the younger deckhands, hands over a leather belt for him to bite down on. Thorn pulls a long, thin hook from his pouch. This is the Pelican, a nasty little tool that looks like a torture device. It's designed to hook behind a tooth, twist, and lever it out in a swift, brutal motion. Horace sees it and whimpers. Now, here's the thing. Dental extractions on land are already a dicey affair. But on a moving ship, with no stable ground, no sterile field, no anesthesia beyond a slosh of rum and a short prayer, it becomes an act of desperation dressed up as medical care. Thorn takes the tooth in hand. You know the drill, Horace. Drill, Horace mutters through the leather. You're not putting a hole in me, mate. 3 other men steady his shoulders. One holds his knees. You hold the lantern. And then Thorn yanks. There's a wet pop. A short scream. Then silence. The tooth, dark and cracked, dangles from the Pelican like some cursed jewel. Blood pools in Horace's mouth, and Thorn immediately packs it with salt and cloth. Horace slumps forward, dazed. This is a normal morning aboard a pirate ship. Historians still argue whether pirate surgeons like Thorn were closer to quacks or unsung pioneers. The truth is, they were both. They learned on the job. They adapted. They invented, out of necessity and fear. Tooth pulling was as common as sword cleaning. After Horace recovers, you help Thorn clean the tools. Salt water and rum again. It's not perfect, but it's something. You've started noticing how even the most brutal of extractions are followed by tenderness, clean hands, soft words, shared drinks. Pirates might be merciless in battle, but they look after their own when the blood is personal. A week later, another crewmate, Gerald, a barrel-chested man with the attention span of a parrot, asks Thorn to yank all of his molars. Why? Thorn asks, frowning. Don't want to deal with this again. I'll gum my food. Problem solved. He's serious. You help talk him down. Instead, Thorne suggests a preventative day, a new tradition aboard the ship. No fighting, no rum, no hardtack. Just rinsing, rest, and a good scrub. They call it Tooth Sabbath. It's oddly popular. Some crews start using fish bones to scrape their tongues. Others mash pine needles into a kind of paste and rub it on their gums. Tastes like Christmas, one jokes. Ezra even ties bits of hemp together to mimic a brush, adding crushed oyster shell for texture. These methods range from mildly effective to downright insane. One sailor thinks urine might help. Thorne shuts that down immediately. Meanwhile, a kind of pirate dental culture begins to emerge. You overhear jokes about whose breath could scare sharks. Bets are made over who can go longest without toothache. Someone carves a wooden medallion shaped like a molar and awards it weekly to whoever's teeth look least haunted. There are ceremonies, mock speeches, tooth chants. It's ridiculous and comforting. In the midst of lawless raids and wild oceans, pirates find community in the strangest places, including the shared agony of mouth pain. It's oddly democratic. Doesn't matter if you're a former captain or a powder monkey. If your teeth hurt, you're human. There's also the simple fact that dental pain humbles people. Even the toughest pirate can't swagger when his gums are pulsing. So they rely on each other. On Thorne. On you. Now too. You're learning the ropes, literally and medically. One morning, Thorne lets you assist. He's treating a young sailor with an abscess behind his front tooth. The boy's nervous. You steady his head and distract him by asking about his first ship. He's 16 and lies, saying he was born at sea. Thorne makes a careful incision. Pus leaks out. The boy shudders, then exhales in relief. Sometimes, Thorne whispers that pressure's worse than death. You get it now. Toothaches aren't just about chewing. They affect how you speak, sleep, live. On a ship, that means they affect the crew's survival. Pirates may fear cannon fire, but they fear an infected molar more. The boy recovers. As thanks, he gives you a hand-carved toothpick holder. It's hideous. You keep it in your hammock. Later that night, the ship lulls in calm waters. Someone strums a broken lute. Ezra reads aloud from a sea-stained journal, someone's attempt at a pirate herbal. It lists brine kelp compresses for tooth rot and whale oil gargles. No one knows if it's real, but they listen. A few pirates doze with rags tied around their heads, classic jostling style. Others chew mint leaves, trading jokes about who smells the nicest. Tooth Sabbath ends with laughter. And for the first time, you realize pirates didn't just survive the sea. They endured it, cheek by swollen cheek. You're woken again, though this time it's not from pain or shouting, but the soft creak of hammocks swaying and a murmur of voices, oddly calm in the pre-dawn gloom. Something's happening. You slide out of your own bedding and shuffle barefoot across the damp planks to find a group gathered at the stern. They're watching Thorne prepare a poultice, carefully layering crushed cloves, dried mint, and what looks suspiciously like powdered coal into a scrap of linen. He folds it tightly, dips it in warm rum, and turns to Ezra, who is slumped nearby with his cheeks puffed out like a frog. Ezra doesn't even argue. He just tips his head back and lets Thorne tuck the poultice inside his mouth. His jaw's been tender for days. You heard him muttering last night about a dream where all his teeth fell out into his stew. Today's not a pulling day, though. It's an herb day. You glance at the satchel Thorne carries, now noticeably heavier than it was when you joined the ship. It's evolved from a loose pile of tools into something resembling a mobile apothecary. Dried bark shavings, waxy roots wrapped in cloth, powder-filled shells, even a little packet labeled fennel. Do not eat all at once. Pirates didn't always loot for gold. Sometimes they raided for herbs. In fact, this particular voyage had recently detoured to intercept a merchant sloop rumored to carry exotic spices. The crew had hoped for cinnamon. They found instead a few crates of cloves, sacks of dried thyme, and one very confused cook who kept shouting that this is all for the Dutch governor's winter banquet. They let him go. But the spices? Those were precious. Cloves, you soon learn, are not just tasty, they're numbing. Pirates discovered that grinding a few and packing them against a sore tooth could provide genuine relief. Historians still argue whether this use of cloves spread from Chinese traders to European sailors, or if it emerged independently among desperate seamen. Either way, it worked. You help Thorne sort through the new inventory, measuring clove portions into tiny folded envelopes made from torn scraps of map. Each is marked with a scratchy tooth symbol. Thorne chuckles. Better than treasure, in its own way. He's not wrong. On a ship where pain can sink morale as fast as scurvy, a single good clove is worth more than a silver coin. A few pirates even trade favors for spice access. You witness an actual barter where a man named Fitch offers 2 days of dish duty in exchange for a double-strength pepper root rub. Thorne allows it, reluctantly. You ask him later if he believes in any of this stuff. He shrugs. I believe people want to believe. That's half the work done. He adds, also, pepper root works. Try some on your tongue. Feels like fire. Good for distracting the brain. You decline politely, but the shift in mood is real. With a bit of hope, real or placebo, the crew seems lighter. Less grimacing. Fewer midnight whimpers. One afternoon, during a lull in wind and activity, you find yourself sitting with Ezra as he painstakingly boils pine resin down into a tarry black paste. To seal cracks, he says, though you're not sure if he means on the deck or between his teeth. There's a fine line between medicine and madness aboard a pirate ship, and often, the deciding factor is just how desperate you are. Ezra's method isn't entirely wrong, though. Sailors in various cultures have used tree resin, beeswax, and even softened amber as rudimentary fillers or sealants for dental voids. It's not durable, but it's something. Meanwhile, Thorne has begun documenting everything. He's stitched together a crude journal from scraps, parchment, canvas, even the back of a Portuguese prayer book. He logs toothaches, treatment attempts, successes, failures, and jokes. Each entry starts with a little drawing. A smiling skull, a broken tooth, or his favorite, a molar in a pirate hat. Maybe one day, he mutters while writing, some poor soul will find this book and thank me. Or laugh at me. Either works. You offer to help him write. Thorne agrees. Your penmanship is neater, anyway. Together, you record the story of Horace's second extraction, screamed like a whale. Thanked me like a priest, the use of orange peel rubs, Ezra's invention, and even your unofficial tooth Sabbath ceremonies. The log becomes a quiet obsession. Pirates stop by to flip through it. Some add doodles. Others suggest nicknames for ailments, like Black Fong Fever or Chewer's Curse. One particularly poetic crewmate insists on naming every lost tooth. His last molar, he announces, was called Jeffrey. The log now includes a solemn sketch of a tombstone with a single molar resting on top. It's ridiculous, and kind of wonderful. That night, over a shared pot of soft-boiled rice and dried figs, you ask Thorne if other ships do this. Some did, he says. Most didn't live long enough to care. That's the thing about pirate life. It's short, brutal, and weirdly sincere. Every ritual, every poultice, every entry in Thorne's toothy diary is an act of defiance. A way of saying, yes, I'm a half-starved thief adrift on cursed waters, but I still care if I can smile tomorrow. You think about that as you press your tongue to your own molars. Still intact? For now. Thorne hands you a folded packet of clove dust. Just in case, he says. You tuck it away. Because aboard this creaking, swaying ship of outlaws and eccentrics, one thing's become clear. The fight for dental dignity is as noble as any mutiny. The morning sun filters through the longhouse windows as you wake to a new day's rhythm. Pirates move about in their usual, ragged shuffle, but today the talk is quieter, more careful. Thorne's journal has become something of a talisman, passed from hand to hand like a lucky charm. You notice how even the most hardened faces soften when they glimpse its worn pages. You follow Thorne to the galley, where the cook is preparing a strange-smelling concoction, a thick broth with bits of anise and something you can't quite place. Thorne explains it's a gum rinse, a rudimentary mouthwash meant to soothe swollen gums. This concoction might seem odd, but it has roots in ancient remedies, blending a pinch of folk wisdom with whatever herbs the crew could scavenge. As you lean in closer, Thorne drops a curious detail. Some pirates believed gargling with seawater alone was enough to keep their mouths fresh. The salt supposedly cleansed away invisible enemies, though most quickly learned that salt water only stung and sometimes made pain worse. You chuckle softly, imagining the poor souls who tried this remedy while clenching their jaws through agony. The cook offers you a small sip of the herbal rinse. The flavor is bitter, with a hint of sweetness from the anise. You make a face Thorn recognizes immediately. Good for the gums, awful for the tongue. But you get used to it. While the pirates work on their hygiene rituals, you spot a figure near the mast, hunched over a wooden box filled with small, shining tools. It's Garrett, the ship's carpenter, who doubles as an informal dentist when Thorn is busy. His toolkit is a haphazard collection of tweezers, files, and what looks like a repurposed metal hook. Garrett's technique is far from professional. He relies on instinct, patience, and the occasional grunt of encouragement from the patient. Historians still argue whether such pirate dentists learned from sailors' manuals or just from painful trial and error. Today, Garrett's working on a young lad named Pip, whose toothache has blossomed into a throbbing menace. You watch as Garrett examines the swollen gum, murmuring reassurances as if talking to a frightened child rather than a grizzled pirate. There's a peculiar calm in this moment, the kind that comes from shared hardship and unspoken trust. Garrett's not just fixing teeth. He's holding a fragile thread that keeps this motley crew functioning. Meanwhile, Thorn confides in you about an odd belief among some pirates, that a tooth removed on a full moon would bring bad luck on the next voyage. Others said it was the best time to pull a tooth, ensuring quick healing and fewer ghosts haunting the crew. You raise an eyebrow. So, who decides? Thorn shrugs. Depends on who's feeling superstitious that day. Superstitions abound at sea. You recall stories of sailors fearing sea witches or cursed bottles of rum, but this dental folklore is just as rich, just as whispered in dark corners. Later, as the ship rocks gently, you join the crew for a rare moment of leisure. Some are playing cards, others whittling wooden trinkets. You overhear a debate about toothworms, a theory once common in Europe, where people believed tiny creatures bored through teeth causing decay. It sounds absurd, but for centuries, that's what many thought. You smile to yourself, glad you don't have to deal with toothworms. Garrett laughs and adds, if toothworms were real, they'd be the worst mutineers imaginable. As evening falls, Thorn pulls you aside, his voice low and serious. He wants to try a new method, a heated metal instrument to cauterize infected gums. It's risky, borderline cruel by modern standards, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You watch as he heats the metal over a lantern flame, then carefully applies it to a seeping sore. The pirate screams, but the pain seems to fade faster than any herb or poultice could manage. You wonder if this brutal technique might be the closest thing pirates had to a cure, harsh but effective in its own way. As the night deepens, you reflect on the strange blend of science, superstition, and sheer stubbornness that defines pirate dental care. It's a testament to their resilience, a reminder that even in the roughest conditions, people find ways to fight discomfort and hold onto some semblance of dignity. You tuck Thorn's journal under your arm and settle down, ready for the next day's uncertain adventures. The dawn spills pale light across the deck, catching the faint shimmer of dew on ropes and wooden planks. You wake feeling the steady creak of the ship beneath you and the salt-tinged air brushing your skin. Pirate life is rough, but somehow, even the harshest mornings carry a strange comfort. Today, you find Thorn and Garrett deep in conversation by the quarterdeck. They're debating something that might sound strange to modern ears, the role of diet in tooth health at sea. You settle nearby, curious to hear more. Thorn explains that pirates' diets were famously limited, mostly hardtack, salted meat, and whatever fresh food they could scavenge or trade. You can almost taste the dry crunch of hardtack as he describes it. It's no surprise that chewing on this tough biscuit wore down teeth faster than any sword fight. But Garrett brings up an odd remedy he swears by, chewing on spruce twigs. Apparently, the resin in these twigs acted as a natural antiseptic, helping clean the teeth and gums. You imagine pirates chewing twigs as nervously as others might chew gum today, hopeful for relief. You chuckle softly as Thorn adds a fringe tidbit. Some pirates believe that chewing on the root of a certain wildflower could numb tooth pain temporarily. The root's bitterness was so strong it could nearly knock a person out for a few minutes. Like a pirate's sleeping pill, Thorn jokes, but without the hangover. Historians still argue whether such plant-based numbing agents were truly effective or more placebo than medicine, but desperate times made any hope worth trying. As you listen, the ship's cook wanders by, carrying a small basket of freshly caught seaweed. He offers Thorn a bundle, saying it's used by coastal tribes as a tooth cleaner. Thorn nods thoughtfully, explaining that even pirates picked up tips from local cultures wherever they landed. You watch as Thorn inspects a strand of the slippery seaweed. Its glossy green leaves seem delicate, but you learn it's packed with minerals and might have helped reduce plaque buildup, an early form of dental hygiene that doesn't require a toothbrush. It's strange to think about pirates swiping dental care ideas from far-flung places while juggling cannon fire and storms. Yet it makes sense. They had to survive with whatever the world handed them. Your thoughts drift to the nights when the ship's cook would brew strange teas from leaves and roots, handed down from islanders or captured merchants. Some were meant to fight infections, others to soothe aching gums. These potions smelled earthy, sometimes bitter, but the pirates accepted their magic nonetheless. In this mix of sea and science, you sense a deep practicality. Pirates may not have had dentists or pharmacies, but they had ingenuity and sheer stubbornness, plus a dash of hope. As the crew prepares for another day, Thorn hands you a thin wooden stick. "Try this," he says. "It's a chew stick. Better than nothing." You test the twig between your teeth, feeling its rough texture and faint pine scent. It's awkward but oddly satisfying, a small comfort amid the endless ocean. As the ship sets sail once more, you realize that while pirates faced many dangers, their fight against toothache was a daily battle of survival and small victories. And somehow, you're glad to be along for the journey. The afternoon sun climbs higher, warming the deck and drying the salt spray that clings to everything. You find yourself near the ship's carpenter, an older man named Briggs, who's quietly carving a small wooden box. You ask him about the kinds of tools pirates used for tooth troubles. Briggs smiles, revealing a mouth full of gaps and crooked teeth, a badge of honor among sea rats, or so he claims. He pulls out a thin, pointed metal tool from the box. "This here's a dental pick," he says, "used for digging out bits stuck between teeth or scraping away tartar. Not fancy like a city dentist's instruments, but it does the trick." You imagine the pirate using this sharp pick by lantern light, carefully trying not to poke too deep. It's not exactly pain-free, but better than rotting in silence. Briggs admits, with a wink, that some pirates weren't as gentle, often pulling teeth out with ropes or pliers, methods that would make any modern dentist shudder. You grin, thinking how you probably wouldn't survive a pirate dental visit. Briggs chuckles. "We called it walking the plank for a tooth sometimes." The phrase sends a shiver down your spine, but Briggs quickly adds that most pirates only resorted to tooth pulling when the pain became unbearable. Historians still argue whether this rough and ready dental care was widespread or just a last resort among the crew, but the evidence suggests pirates were resourceful, using whatever tools they could fashion. Briggs pulls out a small pouch filled with crushed herbs. "We also made poultices from these: clove, mint, and some other plants. Clove oil, especially, helped numb pain and fight infection." You recall clove's spicy scent and mild anesthetic effect, still used in dental care today. Interestingly, some pirate captains issued their crews small bottles of clove oil as part of the ship's medical supplies, acknowledging how common tooth troubles were. This mix of folk remedies and crude tools made up their dental arsenal. As Briggs works, he tells you a quirky story about a pirate who tried to set his own teeth by hammering a gold coin into his gums as a replacement tooth. It didn't end well, but it shows just how desperate they got to keep their smiles, or at least something resembling teeth. You lean back, realizing that despite the rough edges and lack of proper dentists, pirates developed a surprisingly pragmatic approach to dental pain. They weren't just reckless criminals. They were survivors who fought every battle, including the one inside their mouths. The sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the ship. You pocket the wooden dental pick Briggs gave you, grateful for its simplicity and the story it carries. As the ship sails into the evening, you feel the rhythm of life on the waves, the creak of wood, the murmur of voices, and the quiet courage of those who faced not just the sea but the ache of absent teeth. Night falls softly over the ship, stars glittering like scattered jewels across the black velvet sky. You settle into a quiet corner of the deck, wrapped in a worn blanket, and your thoughts drift to the strange rituals pirates develop to keep their teeth from falling out completely. One peculiar practice you hear about is the use of chewing on certain tough woods or roots, not just to pass time, but as a form of rudimentary dental hygiene. Pirates often chewed on sticks from aromatic trees like cedar or pine, believing the resinous oils helped clean their teeth and freshen breath. You imagine the texture, rough, slightly sticky, and strangely soothing. Historians still argue whether these chewing sticks were effective or mostly superstition passed down among seafarers, but you can't help but admire the inventiveness. In a world without toothbrushes, any abrasion was better than none. Nearby, a few pirates gather around a small fire, tossing what looks like a mix of dried herbs into the flames. The smoke curls upward, thick with pungent scents that fill the night air. You overhear that this smoke was believed to ward off bad breath and possibly harmful spirits that caused tooth pain. A charming, if slightly odd, blend of folk medicine and superstition. Another curious tidbit you pick up is that some pirate crews traded their precious rum for bottles of seawater mixed with crushed seashells. This abrasive paste was rubbed on teeth to scrape away plaque, a rough and ready toothpaste. You picture the salty grit working like sandpaper, leaving teeth less grimy but perhaps a bit sore. The pirates' use of alcohol had a double purpose, numbing toothaches and disinfecting wounds, though you suspect the numbing effect was the only part they cared about. You watch a young pirate quietly gnaw on a bundle of sage leaves, apparently soothing his gums. Sage was valued for its antiseptic properties, but you notice the pirate's skeptical expression, maybe unsure if it really helped or if it was just part of the pirate's endless trials at sea. You remember reading that tooth decay was so common among sailors that some crews had designated tooth pullers, often the ship's barber or surgeon, who would extract teeth with brutal efficiency, using anything from pliers to ropes tied to mast beams. The poor souls who faced this were said to grimace through their pain, often shouting curses and promises of revenge. Despite the harsh realities, you sense an oddly intimate camaraderie in these shared rituals of dental survival. It wasn't just about pain. It was about preserving a sense of control in a chaotic, salty world. As the fire crackles and the night deepens, you realize that even in the discomfort of toothaches, pirates found ways to care for each other, however crude or superstitious those ways might seem to us. You feel your own eyelids growing heavy, the gentle rocking of the ship lulling you closer to sleep. The tales of pirate teeth, with their odd remedies and quirky customs, have woven a strangely comforting tapestry, one that's both a little funny and wholly human. The dawn's early light spills over the crest of waves, glinting off weathered wood and shimmering sails. You rise slowly, rubbing the remnants of sleep from your eyes, still mulling over how pirates' tooth troubles shape their daily lives on the endless sea. Today, you explore the often overlooked role of pirate captains as dental overseers. You might imagine these rugged leaders as only fierce warriors and strategists, but in reality, some captains took an active interest in the crew's health, including oral care, albeit in their own rough and ready style. For instance, you learn that captains sometimes set strict rules about how often the crew should clean their teeth, wielding anything from rough cloths dipped in salty seawater to herbal mixtures as makeshift toothpastes. You envision a grizzled captain barking orders like, "No sailor's jaw should be a breeding ground for rot." It's oddly endearing, this mix of strict discipline and care. Historians still argue whether such rules were genuinely enforced or more a hopeful notion in captains' logbooks, but you sense the symbolic value of these edicts. Keeping teeth in decent shape meant fewer sick days and better morale, and every pirate knew that a bad toothache could turn even the fiercest fighter into a groaning mess. One quirky custom you come across is the tooth feast, a rare occasion when pirates would gather to celebrate the successful extraction of a rotten tooth from one of their own. It wasn't much of a party, no music or dancing, just some hardtack biscuits and whatever grog remained, but the ritual bonded the crew and reminded them of their shared hardships. In your mind's eye, you see the crew crowded around a wounded mate, offering rough pats on the back and grim smiles, as if to say, "You're one tooth closer to freedom." These small moments of camaraderie probably felt as vital as any treasure. Interestingly, you find references to a superstitious belief that lost teeth had to be buried at sea or kept close to a pirate's chest to ward off curses and bad luck. Imagine the sailors carefully wrapping their extracted teeth in cloth, casting them overboard with whispered prayers. This mingling of practicality and mysticism is a hallmark of pirate culture. You wonder if these beliefs helped ease the fear of tooth loss, or just added a dash of eerie mystery to an already dangerous life. By midday, you picture the crew chewing on twigs or gnawing at their salty rations, grimacing through their dental discomfort, but somehow carrying on. It's a vivid reminder that even in the wildest lives, small, everyday challenges persist, and the ways we meet them reveal much about who we are. As the sun climbs higher, you feel a gentle warmth spreading through you, a quiet comfort in knowing these old sea dogs tackled their problems with stubborn grit and a pinch of superstition. The afternoon haze settles in as you drift further into the world of pirate dental care, following the trail of how toothaches influence the social dynamics aboard ship. You imagine the pirates' quarters, cramped and full of rough voices, where a toothache wasn't just a personal pain, it was a communal concern. You discover that a crew member's suffering could disrupt the entire ship's rhythm. After all, pirates depended on each other not only for battles, but for every gritty task, from hoisting sails to patching leaks. A man clutching his jaw might be less reliable, slower to respond, and the captain could grow impatient. But here's the odd thing. Toothaches also brought unexpected moments of humor and bonding. You picture pirates telling exaggerated stories about their terrible tooth torment, swapping remedies like pirate versions of folk medicine shows. Some claimed to use tobacco juice as a numbing agent, while others swore by chewing on mint leaves or clove buds scavenged from far-off ports. Historians still argue whether any of these remedies truly helped or just passed the time between brutal extractions. You chuckle softly imagining a pirate sitting on the deck, cheeks puffed out, chewing mint leaves with all the seriousness of a royal physician. You also learn that toothaches sometimes became excuses for a bit of mischief. Crew members feigning pain might get a day off, escaping the backbreaking labor below decks, and there's a sense that the pirate community had an unspoken code to tolerate these small deceptions. After all, the sea was tough, and a little rest was a rare treasure. In contrast, you stumble on the story of one infamous pirate who used toothaches as a cruel form of discipline, forcing sailors to undergo harsh extractions as punishment for minor offenses. His name lives in whispered tales, a cautionary example of how power could be wielded in strange, painful ways. You marvel at the balance between care and cruelty, laughter and suffering, wrapped tightly in the daily life of pirates. As twilight approaches, your mind drifts to the sounds of the ship settling for the night, the creak of wood, the distant call of seabirds, and the soft murmur of men sharing stories, some true, some tall tales, all woven together by the thread of human endurance. You close your eyes briefly, feeling the ebb and flow of the pirate's world, the harsh, the hopeful, the strangely tender moments born of shared hardship and the relentless grind of toothaches at sea. As night deepens and the ship rocks gently on the waves, you settle into the final chapters of this tale, the long-term effects of toothaches on pirates and how these stubborn aches shape their lives long after the seas. You picture the grizzled veterans returning to port, their mouths a patchwork of missing teeth and crude repairs, faces telling stories as loud as any pirate's parrot. Tooth loss was so common it practically became part of the pirate's rugged image, a badge of survival rather than neglect. Medical historians still argue whether the famed pirate smile was just a product of hardship or if it somehow added to their fierce reputation, but you imagine that it did both. Intimidating enemies and drawing knowing nods from fellow sailors who'd suffered the same fate. In quieter moments, those lost teeth made eating a challenge, forcing pirates to adapt. You think about the meals, thick stews and softened hardtack, that became staples because they were easier on aching gums and missing chompers. It's funny to imagine such a fierce crew delicately nibbling softened food, but necessity bred innovation. You learn that some pirates turned to rudimentary dentures, crafted from whale bone or carved wood, though these were rare and often uncomfortable. You picture a pirate adjusting his clumsy fake tooth, trying to avoid laughter from his crewmates. Then there's the curious link between toothaches and pirate superstitions. Pirates believed that dental pain might signal bad luck or curses from the sea gods, leading to ritualistic remedies and offerings. You smile at the thought of a rough sailor nervously tossing coins into the ocean, hoping to appease invisible forces. As the night fades toward dawn, you feel a gentle calm settle over the story. Toothaches were more than a physical torment. They wove themselves into the social fabric, daily routines, and beliefs of those fierce mariners. And so, your journey through pirate dental woes closes not with a bang but a slow exhale, a reminder of human resilience in the face of discomfort, and the unexpected ways small aches ripple through history. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sweet dreams.